You're a 2 times Olympic champion. You're a world champion. You have countless silver medals. Are you running a marathon? Oh, I could never run a marathon. Are you sure about that? A marathon? That's like 42 kilometers, 26 miles. I don't understand those people. That used to be me. Not anymore. Welcome to the Marathon Podcast, Sverre.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, finally.
My best friend on the podcast. Fun.
Yeah. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's great to see all the work you've been up to with this podcast and this running project. So it's nice to finally be here and share some of my stories within sports.
Yeah. No, thank you for saying yes. I'm very excited to chat. For those of you who don't know you, you're a 2 times Olympic champion. You're a world champion. You have countless silver medals in speed skating. And I think you can maybe better present yourself than me. So before we get into it, who are you?
Yeah, I'm Sverre. I'm from Os, outside Bergen in Norway. 33 years, soon 34. Now I'm in age where I'm forgetting how old I am. But I'm turning 34 this summer. I've been a speed skater for my entire life. But 2 years ago, I stopped skating after 15 years with international skating and World Championships, European Championships, Olympic Games, World Cups. A hectic life, a lot of traveling, around 220, 30 days for average a year. So it's been a wonderful career with a lot of ups and also some downs. But I had a good time, and now I'm just enjoying life with family and friends and watching sports.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I don't know what else you want to know.
No, that's good. I mean, I feel like, or I've been following your career since, if not day one, but like at least since we were 10 years old. We started competing against each other early on. You were much faster than me and the most of us. But if you were to kind of highlight, say, three things from your career, what would be your biggest highlights?
Oh, it must be the Olympic golds. Was 2 times in the team pursuit with in 2018 was the first one with Simen Spiller Nilsen, Håvard Bøkko and Sindre Henriksen in Pyeongchang, Korea, and the second one was in Beijing in 22 with Peder Kongshaug and Hallgeir Engebråten. So those two, and my world title in 5,000 meter in 2019. That must be the top 3, I think.
Yeah. And in 2018, when you won the first Olympic gold medal with the team, you also got a 3rd place, a bronze medal in the 5K. And then a month later, you were the best skater in the world. Like for that season, like after the Olympics, maybe the best shape of your life. And you had a race where things didn't go as well, but you were still kind of like, maybe, I think in most people's eyes, if they've been watching speed skating, they would say that you were the world champion that weekend as well.
Yeah, that was a special weekend. If we're gonna make it, or I can tell about a little bit about it. So there was a world championship all around. The last, there was a championship after the Olympic Games, actually.
And for those who don't know, that is like 4 distances, and it's the total. So it's the 500 meters, which is a sprint distance. Yep. Then you have the 5K, which is the long distance, 1,500 middle distance, and then the 10K, which is the longest distance that we skate.
Yes, correct. And it's been one of my favorite races my entire career. And I had, before that weekend, I had 2 or 3 silver. And I also was competing like right behind Sven Kramer and many other good skaters that season. But this was something special because it was outdoor in Amsterdam at the Olympic arena for athletics. So it was more than, I think it was 20 24,000 people there watching, and it was really, really amazing atmosphere and everything. And I had my shape was really good, maybe one of the best of my career. And so I won the 5K, and after one day I was second in the overall. And then on the 1500, I won by almost 2 seconds to Patrick Roost.
Which is a lot. So, like, to the people listening, if you were to compare it to running, it would probably be like winning the 800 meters in running. Or
yeah, the finishing time is around 148,
Yeah.
150 outdoor. So, and that's a lot for the top classes. So I had a pretty big gap for the 10K. I think it was 10-15 seconds something to number 2, and I was actually just controlling the 10K. I was cruising, and I was also leading the race. I was skating against the legend Sven Kramer, but early on I just skated away from him, and I felt really good, but when it was around 10-11 laps to go, I somehow managed to, in the corner, flip or what I don't know.
You were like,
I hooked my skate into my left skate into my right skate, going into a next push in the corner, and yeah, that was suddenly I was in the pads. So that was unreal actually, and. At the first, I didn't know what happened, and I think I heard my coach just yelling at me to stand up and skate again, but I was like gone. And then I realized, oh shit, I have 10 laps to go. And then, but the first straight, I was like, my legs were dead. But then I think the adrenaline and the fear kicked in, so I actually skated faster the last 10 laps than the first 15 laps.
Wow.
And Sven, he passed me after I crashed, but then I reached him again, and yeah, I beat him with a fall. So it was all unreal experience, and unfortunately it was too many seconds to Patrick, who was second before the 10K. So I couldn't reach the gap to him with a crash. So I ended up with silver. And I think that will stay by me
forever.
Yeah. Last weekend I was at the World Championships in Heerenveen together with a lot of Norwegians, and of course there was many Norwegians there, and also Dutch people, but yeah, a lot of almost everyone talks about that. Yeah. So I've learned to handle it and talk about it.
Yeah, because I feel a little bit guilty bringing this up here.
No, you shouldn't.
But I also feel like one of the reasons I wanted to ask you about it is because I feel like a lot of people, or not a lot of people, can relate to the World Championships being this close to a gold medal, but they might be this close to like a personal best or a good race, and then something happens, and then there are so many learning experiences from this. One thing is, obviously, this was before you became a world champion yourself later on, but also just seeing how, if something happens, like you said, you skated faster those laps after, and yes, you couldn't kind of make up for what you lost, but you were still able to get back and perform well. So like in a marathon, if someone needs the bathroom and they have a bathroom break and they think that the race is over, it's still possible to finish strong somehow. So those things are also things I wanted to talk about in this conversation.
Never give up. And I learned from my body that situation that it's a lot stronger than I thought. So it was kind of crazy to see how I managed to actually increase the speed at the end. So yeah, something special in many ways. And I think for the rest of my life in like outside sports and everything, I will have this experience with me as a positive thing, how to deal with when hard things or tough things are happening in life. So yeah, sports gave me a lot, I can say. Yeah.
And on our run the other day, I was telling you that I think that to a lot of people, to the listeners, they might be like, why does he have a speed skater on the marathon podcast? Because obviously speed skating is very far from running. And you could also argue that, or the facts are that the distance is like the 10K, the world record is like around 12 or 12, more than 12 minutes before the listeners, just like to 12 minutes. And so the racing time of speed skating compared to the marathon is so much shorter. But then what we were talking about is that when speed skaters get to August, September-ish, then the physical shape that we were, or especially you, were like, you would be so fit. So if it was a bike race or even running, like technically maybe running wouldn't be your kind of sport, but still in terms of that endurance, that is maybe one of the best. So like on the bike, you're able to push so much power over such a long time. And so the reason I wanted us to have this conversation is kind of to talk about the training that you've done, what training methods, philosophy, what it is that you believe in. And I guess like to introduce that, it's nice to hear a little bit more about your background, like from a very young age when you first started training, like what was your entry to the sport? Your dad was also an Olympian, and just like, how did it start and when did you start training more, and what did your training look like when you were younger?
Yeah, as you said, my dad was Olympian in 1980 in Lake Placid. So yeah, like natural, I got into the sports. Also, my older brother, did the speed skating when I was young, and I also have two parents as physiotherapists. So like their life, what do you call it? How to see on life. It's like be in activity and do different kinds of sports. That's what I've been growing up with. And but I also played football, soccer when I was young. I did also some handball, not a lot, but mainly football and speed skating. And when I was 13, 14, I got some knee problems, growing knee problems, or what do you call it? And then it was quite funny because I didn't tell my parents anything. But my dad watched a football game once and he said, "Are you like, what do you call
In pain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you hurt? Are you feeling pain somewhere?" Yeah, a little bit in the knees, and then I had to stop for football training, but I was able to do speed skating training because we do a lot of different kinds of exercising. We do cycling, inline skating, weight training. We do some dryland work like for speed skating imitations. Some running, some sprints, yeah, a lot of different kinds of exercising. And so when I got those knee problems, I went more into speed skating. I think I didn't want to quit football, but like I was more into speed skating training, and then the season came and I was really improving. And I won I think I won every distance I competed in, and then it turned out to just be more and more speed skating and no more football, which I found at that point was a bit sad, but I had really a lot of fun with speed skating then. So we trained really like, what do you call it? Allsidig.
Yeah, a lot of different training.
Yeah, a lot of different training, and it was a big volume from the early beginning. Long bike rides, really easy, kept it easy. Hiking we did and like I think the most important thing we had in our group that we did everything together. So we did all kinds of training together. We were traveling on training camps and competitions together. We even had some after training meal together at the sports club. So we were really in a big group with a strong culture for training but also for having fun. So then it was easier to do a lot of training.
Yeah.
So I was training every day, and it was increasing by age. So when I was turning maybe 15, 16, I guess I had between 7 to 11 exercises per week, and maybe around 20 hours.
Yeah.
And
as you are at that point combining with school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I had the last year of school. I had 100 days off.
Yeah.
But I had some kind teachers, and the school were adapting to my program and made it possible for me to finish, which I really appreciate. So I managed to combine things, and I had a lot of training. And I think one of the strengths of our sport is that we do different kinds of training. So it was never boring. Also we built up a culture there where it was no issue to go out for biking in 3 hours in rain. So yeah, I had a lot of fun in the youth age and also grown up age, but yeah.
But there are some key things that you're mentioning here. The last thing you mentioned was fun, but you also, like, I feel like, and you could say that this is the same with running, that it's an individual sport. Like although your 2 gold Olympic medals were from that team event, it's still very much like a sport where you are competing with everyone else.
Yep.
And so although you are an individualist, you are still focusing on that team. And the team that you're talking about now is obviously the one from Fana, your club back home. And I remember competing with you guys, and you were always such a big group of high quality skaters, and that training culture was pretty unique. And so I think that is also very interesting to hear when talking to you about, like, knowing that you were an individualist, you were still such a team player, and how important that team ended up being for you. Yeah,
and it was really important for the training motivation and the training, happiness to continue for a long time. And I think there was once later in my career when I was at the national team and I had to do a session by myself at home when I was home from training camp, and it was pouring rain. I was almost snowing, and the conditions were really tough, and I had to do a hard session by myself. And afterwards I told my dad that I'm quite sure I wouldn't have done this if I had to do this alone every time. So that says something about the group and the importance of the group, having a big group around. And for me, even though we do individual sports, I've always been a fan of how a team or a group can make each other better if you have the mindset of it. You can't be in a team and only get help from others. You have to give back.
Yeah.
So those things I've brought into the national team as well, because there will always be new skaters, young skaters coming up to the team and even beat you. But then you have to turn your mindset around and see how can this guy help me if I help him. So That's a big strength of our sports, and I think also in many other sports in Norway, we have a really strong culture for that.
Yeah. And one of those things that, like, I was lucky enough to join you guys for a year in a team working with you guys. I never got to the level where I could actually train with you, but what I was able to observe was that what you really brought to the team was like that training culture of like hard work, being very specific about everything you do, like also those marginal gains that you were always trying to chase. Because I feel like at least for a few years now, the new generation, I think that you definitely left something there where you see that. But like in the team a few years back, I would say that you were probably the biggest contributor factor or skater to the fact that the team was so good also in training. And you've had, since you made the national team back in, was it 2010, 2009, 2010, the first time?
Something.
So you were like 17-ish when you made the national team first. And then you've had 4 coaches, including your dad actually, in the national team. And I know that there were different methods used to kind of get you guys to the top. And it was I guess like from 2018 to 2018 to 2020 would be like those years that you were really up there and had that consistency, but you were still like a world-class athlete. So although when we're saying 2018 to 2020, those are like the golden years, but then you had, like you said yourself, like several silver medals, so you were always in the fight for the medals. What would you say, like looking back at all those years in the national team and also as a world-class athlete, what kind of like key takeaways did you have in terms of your training, the philosophy of training? What is it that you now are left with, like, this is what really worked, at least for you?
Oh yeah, good question. There's a lot of things. I think when I started, from 2014, that was the first time I made I took the first international medal. And from 2014 to 2016, I had a really nice progression, and I had a lot of medals. But then I had a bit tough season, 2016 to 2017, and then we really tried to push even harder, push the limits even harder, and I realized I'm not a completely machine. I have some weaknesses as well, and after that I changed a bit the way of like the whole setting of professionality and like being even more obsessed with the details. So I did not only train a lot, but I also was really aware of the recovery, the sleep, the nutrition, everything was like, I tried to optimize everything. And then I had the last step to the top. But like training wise, we did from 2014 to 2018, we were really doing the Norwegian model with a lot of volume. I think we had average 1,000 hours a year. And actually, after my season 2016-2017, which was not that good, we went down 100 hours to adjust. It was also Olympic season then the season after, but then we saw that it was too much, and it was too much of high lactate training. So then we, instead of building on the hard exercises with even more specific hard training, we went on the bike and did 45 minutes easy instead. So the quality of every hard session was higher and the recovery was better. So some small adjustments, and I was also better to like when I was tired and coming home from training camp, instead of just going on to new training, I was more aware, am I ready for this? Because now this is an easy week, I have to be ready for the next one. So I was better to rest, actually. And because from before that, I thought that if I lose a session, it's
season is over.
Yeah, almost. So then after that I learned that there's no worries to take an extra day off, and like I always ask, if I was in doubt, I ask myself, do you become a better speed skater if you do this workout? And then the answer was no. So I was a lot better to rest after 2016 or 2017. So, but then after 2018, we got a new coach, a Dutch coach, which is half Norwegian and half Dutch, Bjarne Rische. And he came from the professional team in Netherlands, the best one. And he had worked with Sven Kramer and...
Actually, which was a part of Jumbo-Visma, the professional cycling team back then. Yeah.
And they had top results for many years, like Olympic gold medalists and world champions, and really exciting new coach for Norway. And he brought in a whole new, at least a big difference from our training. Especially the first years, we did a lot less volume, but with a higher intensity. Also, the bike rides were harder than before. So that was nice to have a new program and see the good things from that, and see, compare it to my old program. And by those first years, we learned how to find a way to improve. And I think the national team today has improved that program even more, and now has 3 and 4 of the best skaters in the world. So it's really nice to see that their program is developing and proving results.
And when you're talking about especially those years of when Bjarne came in, you were saying that you were going a little bit harder for those easy bike rides, for instance. And in the world of running, there's a lot of talk about zone 1 versus 2. They're saying that like zone 2 training is kind of the magical intensity range to use right now. For you, because like I remember joining you guys for some of those bike rides. Luckily, the last year I was skating, I was actually able to keep up with you guys, and I felt okay. But in the beginning, I was like, how is this possible? We had a bike ride where you were literally like, you were actually pushing me up the hills. I think it says a lot about my shape, but all even more about yours. How, like, when you look back at that, and you said that it has changed a little bit also since then, is it still going like that hard, or what will an easy bike ride look like for a speed skater today, you think, in the Norwegian national team?
I think they combine it in a good way. So in periods or training camps where they have ice training as well, I think they go a little easier on the bike rides. Because what I experienced when I did those a little harder bike rides, I was not that recovered and ready for the ice sessions in terms of skating low and being powerful and those things. But I think when it's a good timing, they have some hard bike rides, which is good for the endurance and improving that. So I think they now found a way to have a good balance with it, and not doing like every time hammering. And for the best skaters, they can ride with 1 in lactate I think way over 300 watts, the best ones. So they can handle, but of course for 3 and 4 hours it's something different. So they have to be careful to not do it too often, and keep a good balance in their training program. And I think also they're better in nutrition now.
Yeah.
During those rides, so yeah, it all develops. Yeah, and also I think one of also the big difference from that program compared to Sondre Skade's program is that they skate faster on ice.
Yeah.
Like especially the what I call easy training. It's not easy, but the laps training is on a higher lap time or faster lap time than before. So it's more relatable to competition, but it's also harder for the legs to handle. So it's interesting theory, and yeah, it's also, you have to also know that it's individual.
Yeah.
Skaters, so it's not that one skater adapts the same way as another one. So yeah.
And there's no doubt that, like, if you look at the Norwegian speed skating team over the last 10 years, that there's been like, or also more than that, since especially like with the last years with Sondre and you guys, like you were doing some things that really worked. And like this Olympics, looking at Ragne, 3 medals, Sondre with a gold medal, like there are, the level is so high right now, and we have world champions, and obviously speed skating and the training that you guys are doing is like super specific. And so I think that for a marathon runner listening to this, there are some parts of what you're talking about that will be relevant, and then there are some things that are like, this doesn't really matter at all, especially when it comes to like that specific speed skating training that you're doing on ice, obviously in terms of the training itself, but also the intensity. Because what we talked about on our run the other day is that usually when, and like I said or mentioned earlier too, is that you would probably, if you were to ever run a marathon just from speed skating training, the best time to do that would probably be mid-September, right? Yeah. So you train normal speed skating training until 1st of September, and then 15th of September, maybe you would do something like that, or maybe even October 1st. But then as soon as we enter like September, then it becomes more specific, higher intensity, shorter trainings, because you want to perform better on the ice. And you even said it yourself that your shape on the bike will kind of just decrease. Like it will get worse and worse throughout the season, but you will also become a better speed skater, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I guess first to just establish, I know that you've done some VO2 max tests and stuff. What was the highest that you ever measured?
The highest one was actually when I was 17, 18 years old. After altitude camp, I had 82.6.
Yeah.
So I've been once or twice over 80, but my average was around 78, 79.
Yeah.
So, but like my best years, I had a higher threshold.
Yeah, because that's what I wanna talk about, how you got to, because I would say that the marathon distance, and some people might disagree with this, but I think that like the most important thing, especially for those of us who are not running like a 204, 203, 201, whatever, the threshold, the ability to be able to push that. And even like if we stay away from those very, very defined definitions, you could say that, like, at least for me, I'm trying to be as close to that threshold throughout the race as possible, although I'm running for almost 3 hours. And then per definition, like that's not threshold anymore. So you obviously are going a little bit slower.
Yep.
But what I realized one year, that was the last year that I was training. I remember I was pissed off after a bad race. It was the nationals, and I thought I would race well. So I went out for a bike ride, and I was pushing like 300 watts for 3 hours, right? And I was like, okay, so I'm in shape. It's just that speed skating is not for me. That's kind of like when I realized. But also when I started running, I was like, well, all the things that I did leading up to that bike ride is kind of what I need to do as a marathon runner.
Yes.
And so that leads me to the kind of training that you would do between April, May, when you start training again after off season, and leading up to September, what is it that you do to get to that? And also a little bit about your numbers on the bike for those who are actually familiar with.
Yeah.
that
So
as well.
our season ends in middle of March, end of March. So then we have like a time off season until 1st of May for the training camps with the team. But I think most of us are maybe resting for a week or two, and then we get on the bike mainly. So then it's actually all about making hours easy, zone 1 and zone 2 hours as much as possible. Combine it also with some strength training, but throughout the years I did less strength. And I feel that long distance skating is turning more, it's more important with endurance than before. So then like April, May, even June is a lot of easy volume, a big volume. And in May we start also with some specific training, but also in low zones like zone 1 and zone 2. And so from May and June we start more specific intervals, both on inlines and also on the bike. And actually my last year I did twice a week threshold sessions on the bike every week. And that was really a good experience, and which I had, I was improving by that, because after my crash in 2021, I had my endurance.
Which we will talk a little bit about, because you had a very, very serious crash.
But that was really improving my endurance. And so and the most of the training is on the bike from April until September, as you said. And so I think on training camps we stay around 20-30 hours a week, and in the rest weeks we have 15-20, maybe even less than 15. And the numbers on the bike is around 10 to 12 hours easy, and maybe 1 or 2 hours with intervals. So, and then a typical interval session was maybe 4 times 12 minutes, or up to 1 hour in total. And then from sub zone 3, like lactate, around 2.5. In speed skating, we operate with maybe a little higher lactate numbers than in, for example, running. So our goal was to aim around 4 on threshold. But we only did it for maybe 40 minutes. But then we started also always with a little lower, a little easier interval, and then the middle part was around 3.5 to 4, and then maybe we had some intervals going harder at the end. So, and then I could do, on my best I did intervals around 360 to 380 watts, and I was around 71 kilos at that point. So that was pretty good numbers, and the best.
Then we're almost talking like professional cyclists values. Like I think that maybe the last few years we've seen some changes to that, with especially Pogacar and Mathieu Van der Poel. Like, but I remember back when, like, if we go back to your golden years, and if we were to just put those numbers into a sheet that some cyclists made, it would probably say that you were on a pro level. Maybe you wouldn't win the races, but you would, in a like if we just look at the numbers, you would probably be able to keep up with them in some races, but maybe not being in the peloton. That would be different.
Yeah, that's something different, and also something you have to learn by doing a lot of years. So, but the specific numbers were quite good, the best years, and I could stay around 400 watts for a long time, and also my maximum power was really good then. So So that was a result of many years with a lot of zone one cycling, and maybe like throughout the career was more specific and more accurate with my training, because I think I got, for example, a power meter when I in 2018, 17, something like 2017. So actually I did for a long time of my career I only trained with measuring lactate and heart rate.
And this is like, it's a very interesting also topic for runners, because the power meters, like they were not available. They were available, but not so like broadly used among speed skaters at least. And so it came at the end of our careers. And so with running, we also see that this is starting to come now. Like you have some, like something called a stride, for instance, like where you can actually measure that on our watches. You get some numbers after. I don't think they're very accurate if you're just using the watch, but these are also things that if we get an accurate measurement of that in running, it will probably help a lot. Because what was good about that was like if you have a bad day with your, like if your heart rate is a bit elevated or something, it wasn't really possible to see what you were actually putting in or putting whatever. And so that helped a lot. But then when you are also talking about lactate, which is something that I know that you used quite a lot, I am also curious about when you talk about the numbers. So if we use the higher numbers or values that you were saying that you would have as a speed skater, do you also feel like they were the same throughout the year when you were on the bike? Or would you say that, and this is like a genuine question, I don't actually know the answer to this when I'm asking you this, but when you hit like September, October, and you get closer to the season, then I would think that maybe the higher lactate would make you better in the distances that you're going to skate as a skater, right? But in terms of being able to be on the bike for so long at 400 watts, for instance, then maybe like a lot of high lactate value, like the higher end of it, would not help you. I don't know what you think in terms of getting to that really good base shape that you were in August, September every year.
Yeah, I think like to be handling a lot of training and also to be able to get in really good shape, you have to have a base, starting with the base, and that's what we did the first couple of months. And then turning into the season, we had to do training to have like the curve for lactate. So if I did a bike test in May, it's sometimes or quite often turned out to be really even going up, and then after threshold I was like blowing up.
Yeah.
But going into the season, you're more even curve. And that's really important going into speed skating races, because you reach a high lactate quite fast early in the race. So I guess on the 5K I can quite early be sub 10 and then reach out up to 20 in lactate. So you have to be able to handle lactate, and then also adjust the training going into the season. So after August you go into a more specific kind of training.
And you're from the same city as Christian Blumenfeld, and I know that he kind of, or him and Gustav, they kind of brought this thing into at least Norwegian training of like, I feel like we used to believe that for you to kind of increase your threshold, then you would have to stay at like zone 3, almost 4, like that threshold kind of. And then I feel like they introduced this thing where, well, as long as you're in zone 3, like almost 2 to 3, you will actually increase that threshold. What is your take on that and your experience with that?
I felt that because I did also the same, like they are like the old method there where you try to stay on the specific threshold for throughout the whole exercise. But throughout the years, I managed to, or we did more over and under, and I could see that improved my results. And I also think that having a power meter and also using lactate more made it more accurate. So like if you're on a really hard training period, your heart rate will be lower. And I remember I was really pushing, especially on the first interval, to get my heart rate up to where I thought was the threshold. And then I probably went too hard.
Yeah.
So it got more accurate with the years, and then also you got more like you adapt more from the training when you're training more accurate. So yeah, I agree that training a sub threshold and also a bit over threshold made my shape better. Yeah.
Okay, so now we kind of gone through a lot of your training. I would love to also have us conclude more at the end of our conversation, just for the listener to kind of take something away also from a runner's perspective or any endurance athlete. But before we do, I would like for us to kind of discuss or touch on something that's very interesting. That's Nils Van der Poel, who used to be a part of your team, actually. He trained with the Norwegian team. He became quite a phenomenon when he did what he did in 2022. Yeah. He got 2 gold medals. He set world records, and he was just in the Olympics, of course. And he was just changing the whole game of speed skating and endurance training. Because I know that there are also athletes from other sports who have just tried to copy that with success. Some people without success, because it's pretty crazy. I think that you're better than me to kind of introduce some of the things that he did, but like the main takeaways was like 5 training days a week, two rest days. Yeah. And those days were just insane, the ones that he actually trained.
And he split the periods into 3 periods where he did like a basic endurance period from April until August, where he only did zone 1 and zone 2. And he had, as you said, 5 days on, 2 days off. And then on those 5 days, he did up to 40 hours with biking. The first year, I actually did a lot of running. Yeah, he was combining running and cycling, but then he got some hip issues, I guess. Yeah. So the last years, he did only cycling those days, and they did 6 to 7 hours a day. And they also had some zone 2 intervals there. So I think he was averaging around, what was it, 230 to 240 watts for 6 to 7 hours.
260, I think.
260, yeah.
260, and he was holding in his brakes downhill just to make sure that it was flat. Because in cycling, you will have this like normalized power output, which is like whatever you have been pushing throughout the whole bike ride. And then you have the average, which is including the downhill sections where you might not push at all or pedal at all. But he just tried to get this as even and flat as possible. And so his normalized and his average was usually the same. Yeah.
So he was obsessed with finding the right intensity. And then when turning into August, he went into a threshold period where he did every day, still 5 days on, 2 days off. He did every day 75 to 90 minutes of threshold, or 90 to 2 hours threshold, I think.
Within those 6 hours.
Within the 6 hours, And that was quite impressive numbers he did. I think he had 400 watts for 90 minutes, 3 times 30 minutes interval. So he was also a really good cyclist at the end. So then he had those threshold weeks for going into the skating season. So he did it until I think he started skating 3 weeks before the first World Cup. So maybe in October, end of September, he went on ice.
Yeah. And I also think that it's important to just emphasize here that the 260 for him back then, with the shape that he was, it was easy for him. Like those 6 to 7 hours on the bike. Yeah. It's like he's probably hitting zone 2, but I think that a lot of it also ended up being zone 1 for him, especially eventually when he got to the shape that he.
So then he had to be really, really accurate and with the nutrition.
Yeah.
So of course that's extremely big load, and if you don't eat enough, you will meet the wall.
And he did some extreme stuff with that, with like potato chips and I don't know if it was
everything. And he said that his dental
hygiene was awful.
Was not good. So but he managed to somehow adapt on it. So then in October, before the World Cup, he went into like a specific skating period. So then he did every day, 5 days, like race, also competition speed on ice. So he split it into 5K speed and 10K speed. So he did, on the 5K sessions, he did 9.
And 5K speed, just to like make sure that the listeners understand, it's like 5K speed will be whatever he was able to do for a maximum of 6 minutes, kind of.
Yeah.
And then, because I think he used the world records or whatever it was.
His goal was around 28 high, 29 lows.
Yeah.
Every lap time. And so he did, and then he split it into 4 lappers.
Yeah.
And for the 10K, he went like the double 8 or 9 lapper. So, but and also with a really short break, just 1.5 minutes or so. And he did that 5 times a week, and combined with some easy cycling in the afternoon until the World Cup started in November. And
then he won everything.
Yeah, then he won everything. So it was really different from other speed skating programs. I think you can see a lot of similar programs, especially in the Netherlands. But this program was completely different from every other ones. And
what's controversial here, I would say, compared to all, like, one thing is speed skating, but endurance sports in general, is the fact that I remember like the rule of thumb that you were kind of taught was like you should have 48 hours between each threshold session or interval session, right?
Yeah.
And then in that first period, he doesn't even train hard. So like then you would say that it's pretty safe. He needs to make sure he has nutrition, but like it's just easy, a lot of hours. Not a lot of people can go through with that. But then you get to the threshold specific one where he has that every day. And then he gets to the more specific one where he has even harder training, because that 5K training is harder than threshold, right?
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on this? Like, is he just a superhuman who's able to handle that? Or can all of us kind of build ourselves up to only having those 20 hours between each hard workout that he ended up?
I think for most people, the most important thing to pick up from that program is to have a good baseline, to build up a strong baseline to be able to handle hard sessions later. So that's what he did with all that aerobic sessions from April until August. He was really, really able to handle those speed skating sessions what he had, because doing that's a tempo every day for 5 days, it's extremely hard for the legs. But he was so well trained from that aerobic sessions and also the threshold sessions that made him strong enough to handle it. So I think the principles are the key. Like I'm really fan of the principles of that training, but if to be able to do it for several years, it's too extreme. But to bring in the principles, I think that's for endurance sports is important.
Because why do you think that it worked so well? When you said you like the principles, I think that the one thing that I would say is that the hardest part when it comes down to it is to be able to put in that many hours too. Like you have said, you said it yourself, like you need to have that base. So getting to the point where he's able to do that, he had to do some crazy things. And you mentioned running. He did like 24-hour races where he was crying in the shower after, right? And his physical baseline, especially when he started that second year of doing this, because he did that for 2 years. The second year doing this, he probably had a baseline where I would say that based on him running as much as he did, I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to do a 220, 225 marathon at the time. But so if you were to look at someone else, another speed skater or a cyclist or runner, to do something with the same principles, why is it that you think that it worked so well?
Ooh, yeah, good question. I think you have to combine it with dedication. So you cannot go into that kind of program and just not be 100% committed to do it perfect. Like we discussed different kinds of program and different kinds of loads. And like rule number one is the more load you bring into the program, the more accurate you have to be. And to be accurate, you have to be dedicated and really like be sure that your recovery is well, your nutrition is good. So I think he went into the details of be able to like finish or do the program he went into. So yeah, it's hard to say. Like I don't think everyone can do. You cannot copy it, but
do you think it would have worked for you?
It's hard. It's hard to say. I
mean, one thing to also just to put this into perspective, because when I'm asking you that now as your best friend, knowing that you right now you have 2 kids, that you also had a son for the last years of your career, right? Like for the last 4 years of your career, you were a dad, and what Nils did was training for obviously a lot, but he would go out and be away training for as long as most people would go, like be at work, right? Those 7 hours every day. And so he would, if he went out at 8 a.m., he would be back at 3 p.m. And then after those hours, people can only imagine how tired he would be, although it was easy. And like you said, he would need to fuel up. There's like probably a whole process when he gets back even to make sure that he's recovered for the next day, which will look the same. And so that is also a challenge in this. So
it's really hard to do that kind of program, and I think you cannot have too many other distractions or energy losses throughout the day. So but he was training a lot, but he was also really good at recovering. So I read that like going up to the Beijing Olympic Games, he had in his tough period with going 5 days in a row with tempos on the ice, he pushed too hard on one session. He was not accurate enough, and then the next days he felt really bad. And then he took, I think it was 3 or 4 days off. And that's pretty cool to do.
Courageous.
Courageous to do going into Olympic game in your final race of the career.
So how close to the Olympics?
I think it was less than 3 weeks before.
Wow.
But he knew he was confident, and he used the method, or he thought about all the training I have done. So if he like, if I'm resting now, I will not lose anything.
And that's just such a big and important takeaway, I think, because I think that, like, knowing you probably would have been stressed out as well.
Yeah, of course.
3 weeks before the Olympics, but this is on a very different level. But I've seen that myself with the running, that if I lose 3 or 4 days, whether that is because of not feeling good, or even just because of life happening, and you just like, I don't really lose that much fitness.
No.
And I think that we tend to think that we lose more. And obviously, like when you're about to compete in the Olympics, the marginal gains are so much like smaller. So those days will probably be more significant than it would be for someone like me.
Yeah.
But I think that it's something for people to remember, that kind of back to what you were saying about what your biggest takeaway was from your training yourself, was that if you don't feel good, you need to rest.
Yeah, and that's what I learned going throughout my career, that I was the early days I was just doing the training and not knowing my body, how it recovers and how I felt. So I think that's one of the most important things to learn as an athlete, to take ownership to your training and how you feel. It's the most important thing to develop and improve. So yeah, I think he was like maybe the best on knowing his body and where his limits were. So.
And he even said it himself that if he's to ever come back, I don't think he's coming back now. He changed his name and he doesn't really want to have any public appearances. But I think that, or based on what he said, I think he said something like, if I was to do this again, I would still need to have a few years off, because it was such a mental and physical load to do this. And he obviously was like, I'm going to do this crazy thing. He made a document so people can head over to how to skate a 10K.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. I think it's very interesting to anyone who's interested in sports and science. And also one thing that we haven't talked about with him, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that as soon as he wasn't able to hit the time that he wanted in training in the lap, he would just call it quits. It was like, I'm done. So to compare that to running, it would be like if you're out doing a hard workout and your target pace is 3:30 or whatever it is, you would be like, okay, now I'm not good enough to do this anymore. That means that I'm tired, because I should be able to do this. And then he calls it quits. The big difference between him and most of us who are just running for fun would obviously be that he has so many hours. So like you said, for him, pushing a little bit too hard can be a big disaster for him, disastrous. But for us, it's more like, okay, I can maybe push through and I have to have a rest day tomorrow. But it's still an interesting thing he did there.
And for speed skating, and I also think for other sports, this was really interesting with the more specific racing, like the workouts for race speed or intensity. And that's what we brought into our program before Nils, actually, also doing more specific race speed on ice. And with like the full suit on, doing inner and outer, and trying to hit the speed from 4 competitions. Because before we did more like easy laps or easy training, and then intervals, and then sprints. But now I think more and more skaters are doing more race-specific training, and I think that can relate in other sports as well.
Yes, and I think that is also something like I hear more and more about in running, that for you to be able to run your targeted marathon pace, you have to make the marathon pace seem less scary. Right. Okay, so now that we talked about this training, like if we were to quickly sum up the training and the things that you believe in. First of all, I just got a message, or I saw, because my dad is running a marathon today, so that's why I was sitting with my phone, because I needed to know how it went. 3:41. Wow. So that's pretty good. His goal was to qualify for the Boston Marathon, and it seems like he did. So now I can turn off my phone. Okay, so good for him. Congratulations, Atle. Now that we talked about these things, the things that you've done, the things that Nils has done, and if we were to try to make this more like endurance specific, like not necessarily sports specific, but more like for endurance and the longer the longer distances. Obviously, this is the marathon podcast. I want to make it as specific for that as possible. But it could also be for, say, the 10K in running and the half marathon and the marathon. What would your thoughts be to be like, okay, this would be the ideal kind of training plan? And then obviously you have runners who are running 5 times a week, and then you have the ones who are running 14 times a week. But what would like overall your philosophy be?
I think first of all, it's really important to find your motivation or your goal for the training. If you have a specific time goal or specific race goal, or just to be in great shape, I think first of all you have to find your way of going into the training, because you have to be enjoying it. You have to have some fun, otherwise it won't continue. So that's the main goal, and then I think it's clever to find a way how to find a good balance of training every week, if it's 3 times a week or 5 times a week or even more, but find a way to be able to continue for weeks and have a consistency, because that's the most important thing, having consistent training for several weeks and be able to have some fun on the road. And I think, or my way of training is that most of it can be easy training, but 2 or 3 times a week I could do interval sessions on the race speed that your goal is for. So, but most for young athletes, I think it's really important to have most of the training in zone 1 or easy. But the less you do, the higher intensity you can have per session. So it's hard to give a specific training program, but find your motivation, find your goal, and how much time do you have for training every week, and then start on something which is consistent for several weeks and have some fun with it. And then everything is possible, and maybe you can adjust after a while, or
because this is interesting that you said like adjusting after a while. And I feel like now, for instance, if I was to use myself as an example, now that I'm very invested in this marathon, I'm also like, we're now spending this weekend together, your family's here, and we both like candy. All of us like candy, and I'm having more candy than I probably would have if I was if I was training for the Olympics, or if I was training for something like that. So I'm not as serious. If I ever got down to like a 2:25 marathon and I felt like I had more potential, I would probably not have candy. I would be like, no, I'm going to try to do a sub 2:20 marathon. So I'm going to do, and then you're getting to more of that elite level approach to training and running. But you did mention that you did have like this kind of, I don't know, like you realized at some point that the nutrition, the things that you changed there really helped you with those minor details, marginal gains that you try to get. What were the like takeaways that you had, like if you look back, and if you were to give advice to me on like what things should I focus on in terms of the nutrition or just the lifestyle choices?
It's I think you have to find a way of like hunting the marginal gains in a balanced way, that you don't lose the fun of doing the training. So if you do too much and it gets too serious, you might end up with not having that much fun as you should have been.
Exactly.
So it's all about finding the right balance between as you say, you have to have joy in life and be able to relax and do some fun things some weekends, but also see how can you improve in a good way.
Because I feel like you also have to take the consequences of your goals, right?
Yeah,
so like
of course. So if you have a goal of being a top athlete, you have to make some sacrifices or choices that may not be every time that fun. But I think you can, on the road of maybe coming there one day, you have to find your way to keep the motivation and the happiness of running.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really complicated thing, and I think it's really individual. And
I'm pretty sure I remember, like, because I followed you almost week by week the last 2 years of your career with the camera and stuff. Like, not week by week with the camera, but we were talking frequently. And I remember whenever we were together, it was like, yeah, you could have some candy maybe on Saturdays, and that was kind of it. Like, you were pretty strict on that. And I guess that came as like a consequence of the things that you were talking about that you learned. But I'm not sure if candy is like the biggest takeaway when you say nutrition or the things. I don't know what it is that you noticed back then that was like, this is something I need to be better at compared to previously.
Yeah, there was more. I tried to have less candy. Yeah, it was not completely stopping with it, but I was more focused on proteins and carbo and eating at the right time of the day, and and also with the sleep recovery and being healthy, like all the small things when you're not training. So, but at that point I was young, and I had a girlfriend, of course, but I was really into the top athlete mindset. So in the last years, I felt that I don't know why, but it felt that I've lost the focus on that point. Some it was not. I could do hard sessions, which was really good, but sometimes I felt I was losing focus, and that was a sign for me that maybe it's
time to call it.
Yeah. So and that can come naturally, and doesn't have to be a reason for it. But I felt that I couldn't keep the highest focus on every session, and especially when I was pushing limits.
And I remember you told me that, and like we also have to end the conversation soon, because if I don't know if you can hear it, listeners, but like there's more sounds now because Sverre has two small ones, and I remember you told me too that like you need to have that motivation to keep going. But really quickly before we end the conversation, we need to touch on that accident. And for those who are interested in hearing everything about it, they can watch the documentary that we made on that, which I think is actually a pretty good one, if I might say so myself. But it's just an amazing story. And I think that the one thing I just want us to touch quickly on is the fact that in May of 2021, you almost died. Like that, those are just the facts. And a horrible bike accident. And then 9 months later, you're Olympic champion in the team pursuit with the boys.
Yeah.
And I guess like, it's crazy. Back to what you were saying about Nils losing 4 days of training before the Olympics. And then you, between May and August, you are barely able to train. You had your first proper bike ride in August. And yes, you were able to start moving, but from an athletic perspective, you were not training until August.
No, it was only rehab training.
Yeah. And so I guess the question, people can watch the documentary. The question is, what does that tell you about the human body and what is actually possible?
I think I mentioned it earlier, but then I really experienced that my body was a lot stronger than I thought. And I did things that I didn't think was possible. And looking back to the Olympics and that year, actually from from May until February, the Olympics was like, it's unreal, and it's hard to describe why it happened. But at the end, it was a strong belief, and after I like came home from the hospital, and I knew that this is okay, I will be healthy again. My focus went more into the sports and more into speed skating, and then I with my what do you call it, psychological we
sports psychologist.
We made we made a goal for this, and even though if it happens or not, this is our goal, and that was the Beijing Olympics. So all I did was training for that goal. So then you see how important having a goal and the motivation is. So then all I did was to become as best as I can for this goal. So it's actually hard to believe that I actually made it. And
I remember when I was making the documentary and I talked to the doctor, because so Sverre is you're very much a person who you're not using big words, you're not talking about it. And I also feel like you probably try to suppress the fact that that accident was as serious as it actually was. And then I talked to the doctor and learned how serious this actually was, and we knew that it was serious already, but like hearing that, and I think that it says everything about the human body. It says everything about you and like your work ethic, the way you got back, but also your family, everyone around you. And I think that like for the listeners, there are so many things, like whether it's just a stress fracture or something, like minor things that are like your body, you have metal in your body still, you have things in your body that would be like, can you even get back from anything like that? You're close to being paralyzed from the neck and down. Like there are so many things that I remember being like almost worried about you even moving in the months after, just because you like, is it okay to do that? Like, is it okay to be in a speed skating position? You know, things like that. And I think that story is just amazing. But I also feel like it's a proof of how much you can actually benefit from years of training. So for anyone who's like maybe entering the world of running right now, we're losing I think we're very much on the end here, so I'll try to wrap it up. But for anyone who is like entering running, but they've been training a lot before, they can benefit from that,
of course.
And so I really recommend watching your story there. Just wanted to thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
1 hour and 17 minutes away from the kids. We need to get back.
No, we can stay here for
Okay, thank you. And thank you for listening, guys. Have a good one, and hope you enjoy this. Perfect. Det var bra der?
Ja. We get it. Tiden går fort. I godt lag.